Hey there, today I want to talk about how there are 3 levels or tiers of spiritual or body-mind healing, and how a lot of people really who get into the healing world are kind of familiar with the first level of healing, but a lot of people like to skip the second level of healing and go right to the third. However, we don't really get to experience the sort of depth or real glory of the third level of healing if we skip over the second. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, these 3 levels of body, mind, or spiritual healing. Hi, I'm Jay Eaker here at the BioSoul Integration Center in Louisville, Colorado, and I'm here to help you express more, to feel more, to live your authentic self so you can give your gifts on the planet. Here to help sort of smooth out and speed up the awakening process, the healing process, which is happening anyway. Life is always pulling us in that direction, and if you start to turn towards your healing, you kind of figure out that, oh, I'm being pulled in this direction anyway. I might as well go down this road anyway, though sometimes that road can be bumpy, and I'm here to smooth out and speed up the process of healing that we have to go through anyway, for those who are committed to that. So that being said, if you could subscribe to my channel, that'd be great. If you could like this video, if you give me a thumbs up, that'll help YouTube know that people are interested in this information, help more people who need it see it. So I thank you for that in advance. So first of all, I want to talk about how a problem that kind of occurs, and the problem is, let me set the stage. Again, life is sort of drawing us in the direction of our healing. There's this inevitable pull towards becoming more whole. But when we come into this world, a sensitive part of our system really feeling into the people around us, and we feel how there's this habitual resistance that's gotten sort of baked into their system. And we assume that that is the way to do it, because there are models for how to be human, and so we adopt this habitual sort of conditioned resistance to becoming whole, basically, and that kind of creates a kind of pressure in our system, and that pressure can show up at any point as back pain, as emotional issues, as organ systems that aren't working like they're supposed to, as your life not working out like you want it to. And this is eventually, as we sort of see and live with this pressure enough, life kind of starts to wear us down, because again, life is always drawing us towards our healing. It's like standing in a river. It's like if you've ever stood in a river and tried to stand still in a significant amount of water, say if it's waist deep or chest deep, or tried to go upstream. There's a significant amount of pressure that's created by trying to stand in a river. That's what this habitual conditioned resistance is like. And over time, life kind of starts to wear us down, because it takes a lot of resources to maintain this habituated conditioned resistance. It takes a lot of resources that we don't get to use for living, for loving, for living our authentic selves. And so over time, life starts to wear us down. And what the symptoms that come up as a result are designed to get us to pay attention. That kind of brings us to the first level of body, mind, or spiritual healing. And let me say that the 3 levels of healing are to clear, to include, and to transcend. So, like I said, that kind of brings us to the first level of healing. And also, by the way, these levels of healing, it's not like a linear thing. It's not like it's not like one after the other. They're like nested. If you have those like Russian nested dolls, how there's a big doll with littler dolls inside of it, it's nested like that. There's a level of healing that is sort of foundational, that includes all levels of healing. The second level of healing is kind of lives inside of that, and the first level of healing also lives inside of that. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'll try to include a graphic so you can see what I mean about them being sort of nested. it's a nested hole. That's why if you if you're skipping the levels of healing, other levels don't get completed or experienced completely, because they're all a part of a whole. Anyway, so the first level of healing is to clear. And once life starts to wear us down, or we start to do some healing work, we start to figure out, because there's been this habituated way in which we're constantly trying to actually disconnect from that pressure that's built up. We learned, again, that that's the way to do it. We're constantly trying to not look at it, disconnect from it. We start to learn that, oh, actually a much better strategy is to turn towards this pressure and look at it and observe it and get more curious about it. Just the act of doing that can create a huge release in our system. It can free up a lot of resources, because there's all these resources we're using to not look at it. Just the act of looking can be a huge relief. And there's lots of techniques, lots of modalities that are about clearing things. Conventional chiropractic on some level, it has deeper uses, but it could be about letting go of tension, clearing energy. EFT, emotional freedom technique, I think is one. There are other techniques like that. Lots of energy work, different kinds of energy work is all about releasing energy or clearing stuck energy or clearing energy, right? And again, that's a very, very, very useful strategy, is to clear energy, and that's one level of strategy. But once our system sort of sees that we're sort of clearing the same kind of energy that builds up over and over and over again, it starts to figure out that maybe there's an even more refined or more advanced level of healing, advanced strategy, than to just keep letting go of the same energy that's building up. And that kind of brings us to the next level of healing, which is to include. So on some level, the energy that builds up, that we're clearing, that's part of us. And at some point, if there's enough space in our system, if we have enough connection to resources, it's useful to stay present with that energy, as opposed to clearing it to actually let it build. And this will sort of automatically happen when we are ready. We'll feel compelled to look more closely and actually let tension build, and feel compelled to sort of stay present with it longer. As that energy builds, there are emotions that come to the surface that we wouldn't let a depth and range of emotion we wouldn't let ourselves feel. Those emotions, they affect our impact, the belief systems, starts to involve our mental and emotional body. And if we can stay with it, again, our nervous system is a self-organizing, self-observing system. If we can stay with it, our system kind of starts to see that, oh, I'm not actually going to die, because there's some level, we may form these patterns out of a perceived need to survive on some level. I'm not actually going to die. And when that happens, we sort of reorganize our relationship to this energy that we were pushing down, that we thought was such a threat. And we actually get to include it. It becomes included in part of us. It gets to influence us, the emotion that it contains, the energy. We get to include it into our body mind, and it starts to influence us. It prompts us to take action. It prompts us to think different thoughts. It prompts us to behave differently. It gives us the strength to sort of like draw new lines in the sand, stand up for parts of ourselves that maybe we were habitually sort of turning against. It gives us the oomph to sort of like reclaim our power. We get in more contact with our passion, with what lights us up. We're more aware of these things. And so there's a way in which actually that energy can, I've described it as, going into the ocean, at a certain point the waves are smacking you down. They're collapsing on top of you. But if you get out a certain ways, you get out past the breakers, then you can come back and you can ride the waves in, you can surf the waves in. So that's kind of what happens with this. If we include it, it actually influences, it becomes part of us, and we get to ride it. And it drives us towards, naturally towards our spiritual healing. It drives us towards wholeness. It drives us towards giving our gifts. If we can get to the point where we sort of include it. And that brings us to the next stage of the process, or level of the process, which is to transcend. And lots of people, like I said, they like to skip to the transcend part. Because often the second level of healing can be uncomfortable. And so they like to skip right to the third level of healing, which is more of a spiritual level, where we're connected, we're seeing ourselves more clearly. We're not seeing ourselves through the hurts and traumas and accidents. We're not seeing ourselves through the lens of the energy that we don't want to look at. We have cleared that energy, and we're seeing more clearly who we are and why we're here. We have more access to compassion and love for ourselves, and consequently for others. More in touch with our authentic selves, more connected to God and nature and ourselves and others. And so there are a different a different level of being that comes out of that, where we have enough space and room, connection to our soul, to sort of where we start to feel compelled to give our gifts. You know, whether we're going to get anything in return or not. We just feel compelled to give our gifts, and of course the world opens up. We've transcended the self. We've transcended the old identities that were based in lack and survival. We transcend those identities. And so to clear, to include, and to transcend, those are sort of the levels of healing, or body-mind healing. And so I hope you found this interesting. I hope you find it useful. Again, please like, subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to helping you express more life.